My ribs cracked under the weight of his anger. The sound, that awful snap, still echoes in my mind. My own son, the boy I raised with trembling hands and endless love, had just thrown me to the ground, demanding money I didn't have the heart to give him. I remember the look in his eyes that night, rage, desperation, and something even worse, entitlement. He didn't see his mother standing before him. He saw an obstacle. Tell me, what would you have done if your own child turned into your worst nightmare? Would you forgive him, or would you teach him a lesson he'd never forget? It all started a few months before that horrible night. I'm a 63-year-old woman living alone on the small farm my late husband and I built together. That land was everything to us. It was where we grew our crops, raised our kids, and shared our quiet dreams. When my husband, Robert, passed away 3 years ago, the place started to feel emptier. My son, Jeremy, lived in the city with his wife, and my daughter, Clara, had moved overseas for work. At first, they'd call and visit, but as time passed, those calls grew fewer. Jeremy, though, he always had one reason to call: money. It started small, a few hundred here, a few hundred there. He'd always say, "Mom, it's just until payday. Or I'll pay you back, I promise." I wanted to believe him because that's what mothers do. We believe our children even when we shouldn't. But things changed after Robert's passing. Jeremy began asking about the farm, how much it was worth, what I planned to do with it, if I'd considered selling. It struck me as odd. That land was sentimental. It was never about money. But to Jeremy, everything had a price tag. He'd started a business in the city, a car dealership with his friend Mark, and he was convinced he'd become a millionaire if he just had a little more investment. The last time I visited him, I saw the way he lived, the luxury apartment, the designer suits, the fancy dinners. All on loans, I later found out. Last spring, a drought hit hard, and maintaining the farm became almost impossible. The crops died, the animals grew sick, and my savings ran thin. I didn't want to admit it, but I couldn't do it anymore. I decided to sell the farm, not because I wanted to, but because I had to. It broke my heart to let it go, but I told myself Robert would have understood. The offer I got was generous enough to buy a small house in town and still live comfortably for the rest of my life. I thought it would give me peace. I was wrong. The day Jeremy found out about the sale, he showed up at my door unannounced. I remember his car screeching into the driveway, dust rising behind it like a storm. He came in smiling, hugging me tightly, calling me Mama, like he used to when he was a boy. But I could feel it, the calculation behind his smile. Over dinner, he brought it up casually. "So, Mom, what are you planning to do with all that money?" I told him the truth, that I'd already bought a little cottage in town and was planning to save the rest for my retirement. His face dropped instantly. "You're kidding, right, Mom? That's dead money. You could help me expand the dealership, double your investment in months." I said no. Politely at first, but he kept pushing. "I'm your son, Mom. You're supposed to help me." I reminded him how many times I already had. He slammed his fist on the table so hard that my plate jumped. That was the first time I saw the anger, the same anger that would later break my ribs. He stormed out that night, saying things no son should ever say to his mother. "You're selfish. You'd rather die with money in the bank than help your own family." I cried for hours after he left. A week later, I started receiving strange phone calls. People pretending to be from banks, debt collectors, even one man claiming to have business ties with Jeremy. They all wanted money, my money. That's when I realized my son was in serious trouble. He wasn't just desperate, he was drowning. I confronted him over the phone, begging him to tell me the truth. He broke down, sobbing, saying his business had collapsed, that Mark had stolen from him, that he owed hundreds of thousands to loan sharks. "They'll kill me, Mom," he cried. "Please, just help me this one last time." My heart ached. I wanted to protect him, but I knew where this road would lead. I told him no again. That was the night everything fell apart. He came to the farm late, around midnight. I woke to the sound of banging on the door. When I opened it, he pushed his way in, drunk and shaking. "You don't get it," he screamed. "They'll come for me. I need that money now." I tried to calm him down, but he grabbed my arm, his grip bruising. I told him I'd call the police, and that's when he lost control. He shoved me hard, and I fell against the edge of the table. The pain shot through my chest like fire. I screamed, clutching my ribs, but he didn't stop me. He kept yelling, pacing, demanding I give him the bank details. When he finally realized what he'd done, he just froze. I saw fear in his eyes, not for me, but for himself. He ran out, leaving me there on the floor. When I came to, I was in the hospital. My neighbor, Mr. Harlan, had found me the next morning after noticing my door left open. The doctors said 2 ribs were broken, and I had bruises all over my torso. The police came, but I couldn't bring myself to press charges. He was still my son. How do you send your own child to jail? They told me they'd put out an alert anyway since it was an assault case, but I told them I'd handle it. Foolish maybe, but that's the kind of love mothers carry. It blinds us to what we should do. Days passed and I heard nothing. Until one morning, I got a call from the police saying they'd found Jeremy's car abandoned near an old gas station 2 towns over. Inside were empty beer bottles and a note. "I'm sorry, Mom." My heart stopped. They searched for weeks but found nothing. No body, no trace. Everyone assumed the worst. I buried an empty casket for him next to his father's grave. I thought that was the end, but it wasn't. 6 months later, I was living in my little cottage, slowly healing. One afternoon, I was sitting by the window when I saw a man across the street, thin, bearded, wearing a hoodie pulled low. Something about him felt familiar. That night, I found an envelope slid under my door. Inside was a photo, me taken from outside the house, and a note that said, "You shouldn't have given up on me." My blood ran cold. He was alive. So that's the situation I was in, and I had to make a choice. Before I tell you what happened next, I want you to pause and tell me. What would you have done if your own child hurt you like that, disappeared, and then came back to haunt you? Would you forgive him, or would you fight back? I didn't go to the police right away. I needed proof. I started locking my doors double, checking every window, sleeping with my phone beside me. Then strange things started happening. I'd wake up to find my garden gate open, my mail scattered. Once, I found muddy footprints leading up to my back porch. I knew it was him. I just didn't know what he wanted anymore. Money, revenge, or something darker. A week later, I got a call from an unknown number. It was his voice, low, slurred, broken. "You ruined me, Mom," he said. "I lost everything because you wouldn't help." I told him I'd give him what little I had left if he came and faced me like a man, sober and honest. He agreed to meet at the old farm, the one I'd sold months ago. The new owners had moved out temporarily, so it was empty. I chose that place for a reason. That farm was where I'd raised him, where I'd loved him, where I'd nearly died because of him. It was time to end it where it all began. When I arrived, the sun was setting, and the fields were quiet. I waited inside the barn, heart pounding. Then I heard his car. He stumbled in, looking worse than I'd ever seen him. Thin, filthy, eyes hollow. "You look good, Mom," he sneered. I stood my ground. "Jeremy, you need help." He laughed bitterly. "No, I need my money." I told him there was no money, that I'd transferred it all into a trust he couldn't touch. That's when he snapped again. He lunged at me, screaming. But this time I was ready. I had called the police earlier and told them I feared he'd come after me again. They were already nearby, waiting for my signal. As he charged at me, I hit the panic button on the small device the officer had given me. Within minutes, flashing lights filled the dark yard. He turned to run, but they caught him before he could escape. He fought, shouted, cried, but it was over. Watching them handcuff him was the hardest thing I've ever done. He kept screaming, "You're my mother," and I whispered, "That's why I'm doing this." In court, the truth came out. He'd been on the run, hiding from debt collectors, even faking his own death to escape his crimes. He'd stolen from friends, from business partners, anyone who trusted him. The judge sentenced him to several years in prison for assault, fraud, and evasion. When the verdict was read, he wouldn't even look at me. I wept, but not out of sadness, out of relief, because maybe, behind those bars, he'd finally face himself. It's been 2 years now. He sends letters, sometimes mostly angry ones, sometimes remorseful. I read them all, but I never reply. I still visit his father's grave every month, and sometimes I leave an extra flower. for the boy I lost long before he ever broke my ribs. People ask me if I regret turning him in. My answer is always the same. I didn't turn in my son. I turned in the man who forgot what it meant to be one. So, what do you think? Was I wrong for not giving him the money? For letting him face the consequences of his own choices? I still ask myself that sometimes, especially on quiet nights when the wind hits the windows just right, and I remember the sound of his voice as a child. But then I remind myself, love doesn't mean surrender, it means knowing when to let go. If you were on my side, please like this video, and don't forget to subscribe for more real stories like this. Share your thoughts in the comments. What would you have done if you were me? Until next time, stay safe, and I'll see you all in the next story.